It's just a movie that I have to see and inspires every time.
It's a powerful moment that I find moving every time I see it, and it's a brilliant piece of acting and directing.
He didn't crash into cinema as a rebel. He grew up inside it. For most directors, movies were an escape. For Ron Howard, they were family. Studio lots for playgrounds, call sheets for homework, legends walking past his lunch table. Richie Cunningham, then the man behind Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man, Rush, 13 Lives. For over 6 decades, he's been the calm in Hollywood's chaos, reliable, unfussy, quietly lethal with story.
To me, one of the greatest examples of comedy drama. It blew my mind when I saw that movie. I think it came out in '66. I would have been 12. I probably didn't see it till I was 13.
Ask him about ego and he shrugs. Ask him about movies that shaped him and something changes. The voice softens. The references get specific. He doesn't rattle off trendy titles. He goes to the films he's rewatched, quoted, studied frame by frame, the ones he's publicly praised as his touchstones. These aren't polite festival picks. They're blueprints, moral compasses, shock therapy. Each one echoes through his own work, sometimes right on the surface, sometimes buried so deep you only feel the aftershock. And if you stay till the end, you'll hear the film Ron Howard says has everything he believes cinema should be, the one that still tells a 71-year-old storyteller how to do the job. Number 6. The Exorcist, 1973, a horror film that turned fear into craft. Before he was the director who made us hold our breath through failing spacecraft and flooded caves, Ron Howard was a young actor taking his date to see The Exorcist, and getting wrecked by it. He's recalled how the film didn't just scare him, it stunned him as filmmaking. Friedkin's control of tension, the slow boil of ordinary rooms turning hostile, the absolute conviction in every frame. No wink, no safety net. Years later, when Howard talks about movies that proved how far commitment and execution can elevate genre, The Exorcist is on the list. What he took from it wasn't pea soup and demons. It was respect. Respect for audience patience, for realism, for treating outrageous premises with documentary seriousness. Watch Ransom, The Da Vinci Code, 13 Lives. The terror comes from how real everything feels, how calmly the camera observes people pushed to an edge they did not choose. The Exorcist taught him that suspense isn't about screaming, it's about believing. Horror can be prestige. Stakes can be spiritual and intimate. You scare people hardest when you never break eye contact. But if this was fear in the familiar, his next favorite showed him how cinema could carry you somewhere you'd never seen and still feel true. Number 5. The Emigrants, 1971. A quiet epic that expanded his horizon. When Ron Howard brings up The Emigrants, it surprises people. A Swedish immigration saga instead of a Hollywood staple, but he's pointed to it as one of the films that floored him, a reminder that subtitles and distance mean nothing when the storytelling is honest. Jan Troell's film doesn't shout, it watches. Mud, hunger, back-breaking work, a family dragging their hopes across an ocean. No easy speeches, no forced uplift, just patient accumulation of detail until you're living inside their decision. For Howard, it was proof that you can earn emotion instead of begging for it. You can see that lesson everywhere. In Far and Away, in the bone-deep authenticity of Apollo 13, in the way 13 Lives refuses to sensationalize its heroes, in how Cinderella Man makes every dollar, every bruise matter. He chases the same thing Troell captured. Ordinary people doing impossible things because they don't have another choice. The Emigrants showed him that, based on a true story, isn't a label, it's a responsibility. Get the texture right, and the emotions will find you. From the cold soil of Sweden, his next pick marches into blistering heat, where honor, obsession, and pride explode on a bridge in the jungle. Number 4. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. Spectacle built on spine. Some directors talk about big-scale filmmaking. Ron Howard studied it. The Bridge on the River Kwai is one of the films he's singled out as a lifelong favorite, something he watched over and over just to understand how David Lean did it. On the surface, it's grand. Steaming jungles, men hauling timber, explosions that still shame modern CGI. But what Howard locked onto was the psychology. A war epic that's really about ego, duty, and a colonel so fixated on doing his job well he crosses an invisible line. Lean's genius is that the set pieces grow out of character, not the other way around. It's the template Howard carries into his own mission movies. Apollo 13 isn't about rockets, it's about professionalism under pressure. Backdraft isn't about fire, it's about the code between firefighters. Even Rush builds its racing around two men's competing definitions of purpose. The bridge on the River Kwai taught him that scale is meaningless if it's empty. Make the conflict moral, then build the spectacle on top. But understanding scale and duty wasn't enough. The next film showed him how confusion, irony, and a single lost soul could turn into a new kind of cinema. Number 3, The Graduate, 1967. Irony, intimacy, and the art of what's unsaid. When Ron Howard talks about the films that lit up his young imagination, Mike Nichols is right there. The Graduate is one he's praised for its effortless style, a movie he could dissect shot by shot. Here was something radical, a character who doesn't know who he is, framed in ways that make you feel his suffocation before he says a word. Jarring cuts, drifting zooms, Simon and Garfunkel floating over close-ups instead of exposition. Nichols trusted composition, rhythm, silence. Howard absorbed that. In Parenthood, in Splash, in Night Shift, and even inside his studio assignments, you can feel a director who understands that comedy and pain share the same room. He'll sit in a reaction shot half a second longer, let the awkwardness play, let an image finish the sentence. The Graduate showed him that you don't have to explain the crisis if you can stage it. That tone can carry theme, that young audiences will follow you if you respect their intelligence. If Nichols taught him how to whisper, the next pick screamed, in the best possible way. Number 2, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975. Rebellion with a Human Face. Ask Ron Howard about the movies he reveres, and this one keeps coming back. He's hailed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for its exhilarating mix of character, ensemble, comedy, and revolt. Cinema that feels alive, dangerous, and weirdly tender all at once. Milos Forman turns a locked ward into a world. Every background patient matters. Every glance is a story. McMurphy's rebellion is hilarious until it isn't. The laughter curdles into something tragic. That balance, accessible and anarchic, mainstream and merciless, is exactly the tightrope Howard walks when he brings real conflicts to big audiences. You see Cuckoo's DNA in A Beautiful Mind, where charm slowly fractures into crisis. In Frost Nixon, where a TV interview becomes an insurrection. In The Paper, with its manic, morally loaded newsroom. He loves films where institutions are challenged not by superheroes, but by flawed humans who decide, for one crucial moment, not to back down. For Howard, Cuckoo's Nest is proof that popular doesn't have to mean safe. You can break hearts and systems in the same scene. But there's one film he keeps circling back to. One that predates his stardom, matches his values, and, in his own words, has everything he wants movies to stand for. Number 1, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 1939. The film that wired his conscience. When Ron Howard talks about Frank Capra's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, he doesn't sound like a historian. He sounds like someone describing a personal mentor. He's praised it as a story about the possibility of corruption in the system and the responsibility of ordinary citizens to stand up to it. Jimmy Stewart's Jefferson Smith arrives naive, gets humiliated, and chooses against every cynical instinct around him to fight anyway. No superpowers, no perfect speeches, just exhaustion, belief, and a man refusing to sit down. That is Ron Howard's cinema in one blueprint. The astronaut who won't give up in Apollo 13. The mathematician pulled out of delusion by love in A Beautiful Mind. The divers in 13 Lives who risk everything without expecting a statue. The talk show host and the disgraced president in Frost Nixon locked in a battle over truth. Ordinary people, impossible pressure, a sliver of decency that somehow holds. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is the movie that tells him you can be clear, emotional, idealistic, and still be honest. That optimism isn't weakness if you earn it. That stories can believe in people without lying about how cruel the world can be. At 71, after a lifetime in front of and behind the camera, Ron Howard doesn't need to invent a myth about himself. His favorite films already explain him. These 6 movies don't just decorate Ron Howard's resume, they explain it. A possession horror that demanded seriousness, a Swedish Odyssey that proved patience, a jungle epic that fused ethics with spectacle, a razor-sharp coming-of-age that trusted subtext, a ward full of rebels who refused to sit down, and one idealist standing alone in a broken chamber, talking until someone finally listens. Together, they map out exactly why his own films feel the way they do. Steady hands, high stakes, human hearts, no cheap contempt. Now you've seen what built him. Which of these 6 would make your list, and where do you see their shadows in Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, or Rush? Tell us below, and if you want more dives into the films that shaped the filmmakers, you know what to do.